Hi everybody, again, this is John Strucker, the author of the course, and before we close out the course and before you leave, I'd like to share some final thoughts and reflections, things that I hope you'll be sure to take away from the course. Interestingly enough, even though this course has been about how to give diagnostic assessments, ultimately, it's not about the tests. It's not about rules and procedures, especially with diagnostic assessments. What you're really interested in addition to people's mastery levels in word reading or vocabulary or comprehension, what you're really interested in addition to those things, are the details within the tests. So when it comes to word reading, what kinds of words did they appear to miss? Did that also happen when they were doing some oral reading fluency for you? How did they define words when they took the vocabulary test? Did they give nice, thorough definitions, or were their definitions short, or even worse, a little bit vague? These are the details that really help you to plan instruction. So if you concentrate too much on the rules and procedures, then you miss the important stuff. The second point I'd like to make is that diagnostic assessment is a collaborative process. In fact, it can actually be used to build a collaborative relationship between the teacher and the learner. So how can you do this? Well, at the very first, when you first start giving the test, make sure you explain carefully to the learner what all the tests are going to be like, what you're going to ask them to do, what you're going to be doing during the tests, and how you're going to use the results. So you might say, this is a word reading test. You're going to be reading words on a list, and while you're doing that, I'll be making notes, and we'll use those notes to make decisions about what, if anything, more you need to learn. Another thing to do to build that collaborative process is to make sure you give the learner brief but honest feedback when the testing is over. So you might say, thinking again of Michael Ryan, Michael, you know, when you did the background questionnaire, you told me that you had trouble with the long words and that you read slowly. And the testing showed that. But Michael, the good news is that you had really good strength on the short words. And since you can read some of the short words, we can use that strength to teach you how to read the longer words. And when it comes to reading faster and more accurately, we can improve that for you through practice. So Michael not only knows how he did on the test, but he has a sense of what you're going to be doing with him as the semester moves on. The third thing I'd like you to remember is that diagnostic assessment is only a starting place. It tells you where to start the instruction, what level to teach in each of the components, word reading or vocabulary, comprehension, and it tells you which components to emphasize. But after the teaching and learning cycle goes on, that relationship could change, and we certainly hope the levels will change, that students will improve. So in the case of Michael Ryan, if it turned out after we worked with him, he got better at reading some of the long words, we could shift the emphasis of his instruction more towards developing his vocabulary, which we know he also needs in order to be a better comprehender. The fourth and final point I'd like to leave you with is that in large and mid-sized adult literacy programs, diagnostic assessment can be used to place students. Remembering Richard and Vanessa, they both had radically different needs in reading, even though their comprehension was, for both of them, was grade 4. Richard needed print skills primarily, at least initially, and Vanessa needed to develop a better vocabulary in English in order to read English at a higher level. Creating classes that are based on students' patterns of strengths and needs isn't an easy thing to do. And it may be a hard sell to your program director and some of your colleagues. Maybe you can help this by doing some diagnostic assessments on several of your students and showing your colleagues the results. This will help them to realize that these patterns are real and that they're quite stark sometimes. And then finally, if you really want to get them involved in supporting diagnostic assessment, encourage them to try some of these tests. Teach them how to give the tests, and then they'll learn how much they can learn about their learners' strengths and needs, and they'll become advocates of using diagnostic assessment for placement and teaching.